Hello everyone, I'm Janine Kakmar with PHTV Channel 4 Palo Sites. We're back with our show all about books, and on the show we talk about books and writing, authors, and then we have a special guest with us who we'll get to visit with. Today I'm excited to start off our new year, and not only in a new set, but with our guest today, Library Director Jesse Blazek.
Hi.
So Jesse, thanks for being back with us. Jesse was a guest on our show, I don't know, about a couple of years ago by now already. But you're here to talk about some of the things that are happening with the library this year. I hear some exciting things are happening. I don't know. I work there. Yeah. I think I should know. But
it's a big year.
Yeah. What is it?
So 2019 is the library's 75th year in existence. So we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year.
Hence the button on your shirt.
Yes,
right?
my fancy button, which we have for anybody who wants one.
Great.
Stop by the library and grab one.
I'm not wearing mine, but
show
that's
your library pride.
Yeah.
I know it's a big year for anniversaries around town. The city's 60th anniversary.
Right.
Trinity's 60th anniversary as well.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
And the library is actually a little bit older than those two places, 75 years old now.
Wow. Well, I would like to hear more about the library and everything that's going to be going on. And I know you want to talk about a book that you just recently read. But before we get to you, we're going to talk about books, okay?
Great.
And then we'll come back to you. All right. So today we're going to be talking about some of the best books, the big hits from 2018, and then we'll take a look at some of the new releases coming out in January. But we don't have time, of course, to talk about every new release that's coming out or every big hit that came out last year. But we'll talk on some of the few fiction and nonfiction books that were kind of running under the radar for most of the year, and then they became big hits on their own rights. So our first book that we'll be talking about is a fiction book titled The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell by Robert Dugoni. Now this author is known for his police detective series featuring Tracy Crosswhite as his main character. But in this book the author changes directions with his novel, and it's a much more personal novel, and it's a novel that it took him almost his whole lifetime to write. And it's a sensitive coming-of-age story about a young boy who was born with ocular albinism, which means he has red pupils. And so, of course, he's tormented by his classmates, and he has a lot of struggles growing up. And the story is actually written from him as an adult when he is looking back on his life. And one of the forces behind him in his life was his mother. She was the one who helped him to deal with the struggles and would reinforce to him that yes, indeed, you will live an extraordinary life, no matter what you look like. The book takes place in 1962, so they didn't have colored contact lenses at the time. This is actually a real condition people have. So she really reinforced to him that you can't hide who you are. You have to accept how you were born, whether people understand you or not. And the author said that this book is really a book about belief that from the boy's perspective, that whatever his mother was telling him was the truth, that all of the struggles that he was going through do have a purpose. And that was one of the main themes the author wanted to get across, because that he based this on part of his real life. His youngest brother was born with Down syndrome back many years ago, and his mother became the force behind him. And so much of the mother's character that's in this book is based in real life upon his mother in real life, and how she championed her brother's cause for his care. So it's just a great book. It's been met with such great, it was Amazon Book of the Month for April last year, and people just love this book. It's much along the same lines as the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio that came out a while back. Another book on our best of from last year of 2018, it was a book list top editor's choice as well, is Circe by Madeline Miller. And this is a book that retells the Greek myth of Circe, the daughter of Zeus. Now I know I just dropped, half of the audience of you just went to sleep because I said a Greek myth, and you're thinking, oh my God, she's going to start talking about school assignments. But actually this book is really a well-written story. The New York Times Book Review wrote it was a bold and submersive retelling of the goddess's story that manages to be both epic and intimate in its scope. And it recasts one of the most famous female figures of the Odyssey as a hero in her own right. And so when you read this story, it's not like you're reading some dated period piece. She really brings it to life and becomes a real character. And our third book, still a fiction, is titled There, There by Tommy Orange. And this was one of the top 10 books of the year by the New York Times Book Review. And this book, this author tells the story of the lives of 12 contemporary Native Americans. And it's beautifully written and authentically woven together. In fact, and it's about how this journey towards the big powwow in Oakland, California. And when I started reading it, I kept hearing about this book. People kept saying, hey, kept popping up in all of the, hey, did you read this book? And I started reading it, and I thought at first it was a series of short stories, but it actually was the author setting up each of these 12 different lives, and then he brings them together at the very end at the powwow in this nail-biter of an ending, and it was an incredible book. So that one also was like a surprise hit from last year. And now we're going to move on to nonfiction books. And of course, last year's biggest nonfiction book, the biggest hit of the year, was Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. But the books we're talking about were the books that weren't expected to be big hits. They were kind of, again, riding under the radar, and all of a sudden people just kept reading them and were so shocked by how good they were. The first one on this list is Educated by Tara Westover. It was named one of the top 10 books of the year by New York Times Book Review, and it's an unforgettable memoir of a young girl who was kept out of school. She lived with her survivalist family. They didn't believe in public schooling, but she finally leaves her family, and she goes on to earn a PhD from Cambridge University. Now, this book was very similar to the book Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance that came out a couple years ago, in the way that it shows the extremes in the lives of these people, the clash of cultures within our own country, and the ability for their ability to overcome their circumstances. And if you haven't read Hillbilly Elegy either, that's an incredible book to read as well. So those are two books two for the price of one there. Our second nonfiction title that got a lot of attention this past year is Factfulness: The 10 Reasons We Are Wrong About the World and Why Things Are Better Than You Think by Hans Rosling. Now, this author was a professor of international health and a global TED Talk phenomenon. And he takes a look at the 10 instincts that distort our views. And he writes that when we worry about everything all of the time, instead of embracing a worldview based on facts, we can lose our ability to focus on the things that really need our attention. And it's been reviewed as an urgent and essential book that will change the way you see the world and empower you to respond to the opportunities of the future. And our third nonfiction book that I just heard yesterday in the library, someone goes, "Have you read this book?" I mean, it's every time I come across this book, people are telling me, you have to read this book. And this book is titled The Library Book by Susan Orleans. If that name sounds familiar, she had written The Orchid Thief several years ago now. But this one was the Washington Post top 10 books of the year in 2018. And she tells the true story of the fire at the Los Angeles Public Library on the morning of April 29th, 1986. This fire was absolutely disastrous. It reached 2,000 degrees and it burned for over 7 hours. By the time it was extinguished, it consumed over 400,000 books and damaged over 700,000 more. But in this story, the author uses her signature wit and her compassion and talent for deep research to take us on a journey for her love of the libraries and why they remain a part of our hearts and minds in this country. And again, I can't tell you how many people have read this and said, you've got to read this book. So that one's on my list too. So there's just some of the books that came out. They weren't expected to be big hits, but they ended up becoming very big in their own right from 2018. And now we'll talk about some of the new releases coming out in January of this year. The first one that I'm most excited about is because it has one of my favorite characters, is The Golden Tresses of the Dead. And this is Alan Bradley's latest in the Flavia de Luz series. We've talked about the series on the show before. It's book 10 in the series, so if you want to get in on the series, you should start at the beginning with Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie. Start there, and then you can get your fix of Flavia before you can get to the new one. A second new one coming out this month is The Suspect, which is the latest thriller by Fiona Barton. Crucible is James Rollins' latest in the Sigma Force series. And The Current by Tim Johnson. This is actually one of the most anticipated books from 2019 because of his debut novel that came out back in 2015. He wrote the book Descent. It was a surprise hit. People are still reading this book and talking about it. So everyone's excited for his new book titled The Current. It's about an accident on a road trip which leads to all kinds of trouble. So that one's coming out. The Only Woman in the Room by Marie Benedict is her latest in her historical fiction books. It's a novel about Hedy Lamarr and her role in World War II. Out of the Dark is Greg Horowitz's latest in the Orphan X series. That Churchill Woman by Stephanie Barron is a novel about Churchill's mother, Lady Randolph Churchill. And Joseph Finder is out with his newest, Judgment. It's his latest thriller. So there you have some best ofs for 2018, some of the new releases coming out in January of this year. And now we get a chance to visit with our special guest. Thanks for waiting, Jesse, so patiently. We're back to talk about, now you were just telling me, I know you as a library director, I kind of have to ask, have you always been a reader, or are you a reader because you work at a library? Chicken or the egg, what?
No, I've pretty much always been a reader. I grew up, with lots of books in the house. My dad was an academic, and
okay.
I was read to a lot as a kid.
Uh-huh.
I think, like a lot of people, maybe during middle school, high school, I didn't read quite as much. But then once I got out on my own and rediscovered what books can be,
Yeah.
I've been a big reader since
Yeah.
since college,
Okay.
and well before my career as a librarian.
Okay.
And in fact, it was one of the motivations for me to look into being a librarian, what librarians do, and
Mm-hmm.
Libraries were such a big part of my life as a child, and I thought, hey, I love books.
Right. It's kind of funny because people, for those of you who don't know, I work at the Palos Heights Library as well, if you didn't know that already. But people always think, oh, at a library, all you do is sit around and read a book, which would be great.
Right.
But that's not quite how things work. But we do have to do a lot of reading,
Yeah.
because that's the world we live in.
It's funny because now that I have worked in libraries for a while, when I talk to people who are interested in being librarians, the first thing that I tell them is that this is a people profession.
Absolutely.
The books have great appeal, and I love being surrounded by them, and I love, like you said, hearing people say, oh, have you read this? Or have you heard that?
Yeah.
Being steeped in the buzz helps me, find that many better things to read.
Absolutely.
Which is great. But yeah, librarians work with people more
That's
so
right.
than books.
That's right. And it's funny because I have a little book that I keep because I'm always running into people. Hey, they say, hey, did you read this book? No, I haven't read it. I heard about it. And so I will get my advice, readers' suggestions from other readers as well. Like
Right.
people who come in the library, if someone I see in the grocery store or something, they stop you and they start talking. And so a lot of that, is like I'm always taking a list of books. Of course, I get lists from from work, when we get emails and all
Right.
that kind of thing, from publishers and that kind of announcements. But it's just as much as talking to anybody else.
And I'm the same. I mean, I think of it as, there's so many good books to read and there's so little time. I have to be I try to be really selective about what I spend my time on. I don't
Yeah.
want to waste my time on
Absolutely.
mediocre books. And so, when you're talking about the most anticipated books, excuse me, the most anticipated books of 2019, I see those lists, but really what I pay more attention to than what's highly anticipated is how things are being received and how things are being received
Right.
in the library
Right.
by our librarians, by patrons who come in and
Yep.
mention a book here or there. That's what really guides me to things that
Absolutely.
are the knockouts, and the misses that I experience are things that I pick up from a top 10 list here or there,
Right.
that I didn't get good feedback from a real person
Right.
that I know.
Right, that's funny you say that because we do ask a lot of the patrons who walk in, anybody who walks in, when they pick a book up, I said, let me know what you think about that book because I'm thinking about reading it. But they'll come back, oh, don't bother, or oh, it was great, you know. So I do take a lot of my reading suggestions from people. So come in, and you must come in and tell us when you read a book,
Yes.
you know, what your thoughts are, because it does matter.
Well, it's really interesting too, because it highlights again sort of the people centered focus of being a librarian, but also there is this inherently social element, I think, to reading, which is, you know, you think of it as an isolated thing.
Right.
I'm sitting down reading a book. I'm by myself. It's me in this book.
In your own
but
world,
you're in conversation with an author, and being in conversation with an author is being in conversation with the people that author interacts with, the stories that person is connected with. You bring your own stories and your own background to that book as well. There is a social life that hides behind reading books and engaging with literature. Aside from just commenting, you know, talking about books with people.
Yeah.
There's really, for me, this is, as not a very social person, naturally, this is one of what I feel is one of my better social outlets too.
That's great. It's a great way to have that, you
Yeah.
know, as you're doing something that you enjoy,
Right.
and you're accomplishing two things at once, so to speak. But you've got a book that you just finished reading.
So yeah, I actually just this weekend just finished reading The Good Neighbor, which is by Maxwell King. It's the first sort of full-length biography of Fred Rogers, who probably everybody knows as Mr. Rogers. He did his show for almost 40 years on PBS. And
Is that long?
Yeah, I think it was 37, 38 years,
Wow.
with almost no break. Starting from the 60s until I think 2001 or so, he filmed his last episode.
Wow.
And I didn't grow up watching him every day, but I watched him enough that you know, I can look back with some strong nostalgia on what he did in the show.
What made you read this book?
Well, I've been thinking to myself for a long time, ever since Mr. Rogers died. So you know, people remember where they were when they heard about September 11th, or when they heard about JFK being, you know, being killed. I remember where I was when I heard that Mr. Rogers died.
Really?
That's
Wow.
how strongly it resonated
Wow.
with me at the time, and I thought, oh, I should hunt down a biography. I want to see who is the person behind the personality.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I was frustrated because there wasn't any great biography about him out for a long time, and I thought to myself, if somebody doesn't get around to writing that book, I'm going to have to write it myself. But thankfully, Mr. King went and did that for us. So
Check that off your list.
Exactly. I don't have to take that on myself. But I wanted to know, you know, who is this person? Who was this person behind the show? Was he at all the person that he seemed to be on screen? You know, what was the correlation between this man as a human being, a flawed person in real life, and this TV character that
Do we
I
find
grew
out
up loving?
then? I mean, do you see both sides?
I think to a significant extent, yeah. There's, you know, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of dirt on Mr. Rogers, on
Well,
Fred
that's
Rogers
good.
the man.
Yeah.
It seems like he really was, you know, again, a flawed human being. He you know, had his foibles and, you know, maybe his less than stellar moments in life, like all of us. And the book does, you know, go into kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly that way. But for the most part, he was a principled person, an ideological person who believed strongly in what he was doing and was driven to you know, to bring his, you know, his message to children,
Which was?
you're loved, you're accepted, you're special, you belong in this world.
Wow.
And
It's a great message.
yeah, well, it's a needed message.
Yeah.
You know, as I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old now, and I see them on a daily basis. Life is hard for 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds. They struggle with everything, you know, just they're trying to figure out how the world works and trying to, you know, learn how to use a spoon and talk and, you know, communicate effectively with people, and it can be really frustrating.
We forget that, you know, we forget how much, you know, what goes into being a human being, you know.
And it's full of mistakes, and they know that they're making mistakes, and they hate it, and I just want you to understand that I want more water, or something like that.
I don't like carrots.
And that's one of the things that I've come to appreciate as an adult, as my kids are now watching Mr. Rogers, and they get sucked in as much as I ever did. Is the way he engages with children, on their level, not in a condescending way. But in a way that is really in tune with how they think. And I think for me, the thing that resonates so much from my childhood with him, and I see working so well in the show now as a parent, is especially the focus on emotions, and the way he shows kids that it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. He talks about things like competition and habits, good habits, bad habits, and makes it okay to be a human being. It really helps, which, like I said, is so important for a kid.
I think I want to watch this. I think I want to watch Mr. Rogers again. Those are all like lessons we all still need to know.
And I agree too. I can sit there and watch. I don't get so much into the make-believe part now as an adult. I know my kids still do. But the first half of each episode, if you remember, is him in his house, which is a set, but it's more of a real experience, not the make-believe experience, like of the land of make-believe, with the puppets and all the fictional characters. And that was a very intentional pedagogical tool that he used in the show, having the sort of starting off with this real life connection.
Is that when he's putting his sweater on? Yeah,
exactly. Sings a song welcoming you to into this world, into his home.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Yeah.
Which is actually the title of the movie that came out.
Right.
The documentary. And I was just reading in the paper just today that the Oscar nominations came out, and for Best Documentary and Won't You Be My Neighbor, the movie about a biography about Fred Rogers, was not on the list.
Right.
And everybody was like, they're outraged because, like, how could that movie not be out? Because it's just a phenomenal movie. We just showed it at the library. People were just love the movie.
I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's not related to the biography at all.
No,
the timing
separate,
is pretty coincidental.
Yeah.
But and the movie, from what I've read, is a little more. Positive, a little less scrutinizing. I think the book digs into his personal life and sort of the gritty details of his personal life a little bit more than the movie does. But as we know, movies are limited in their scope.
True.
You can only put so much in a couple hours of movie, where in hundreds of pages of book you can really put a lot of information and detail in there.
Well, good. Thanks for sharing about this one. You guys can put that on your reading list as well. But I want to hear more about the library. I would like to share what was going on in the library for this big 75th anniversary year, 2019.
So we've got a lot going on. Some things that I'm happy to talk about and excited to talk about, and some things that I have to keep under the table for now.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is that on February 28th, which is the 75th anniversary of the actual founding of the library, we're having a public reception and open house. The library is actually closing for business at 4 o'clock that day. And then at 6 o'clock, we're opening the doors again to the public. Everyone is invited. I hope everybody comes and joins us. We'd love to pack the place. We'll have a presentation that features a movie that was put together by you and Channel 4 and other people, which I've had the opportunity to see already, and it's fantastic, and you're going to love it, so come for that.
We're going to have Catherine Cross on this show next month, and Catherine is our staff member at the library along with myself, and she's the one who did so much work on it. So we're going to have Catherine on. She's going to talk about the story of Palos Heights Local History Video Project, which is what you're referring to.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to have hors d'oeuvres. The library is going to be open. We're going to have the city officials will be there. We'll have. Our new website is coming out.
Yeah, we'll unveil, kind of do a public unveiling of our new website.
So what can go wrong with that, Jesse? Right?
Which will go according to plan. We'll have local history exhibits,
right.
which you know, you and your staff have been working really hard to put together.
Right. This is something the library's not had before.
Right. So museum-style exhibits on a number of different topics.
Photographic
Yeah.
exhibits, so you can come in. We're hanging them up now on the walls, and there's some great. Well, I'm not going to tell you what they are. You have to come in and see them, but they're great. Some excellent photographs that talk about the different phases of the formation of our community. So,
but we'll have lots of other fun stuff too.
Yeah.
A photo booth, you know, some games, fun activities for the kids, kids of all ages.
Upstairs is the green room, and
Yeah.
that's where this photo booth. And I don't think a lot of people know that we have this green room.
Right.
That people can come in and make these incredible photos or movies. It's really cool.
It's our media lab.
Mm-hmm.
It's got quite a bit of equipment in it, as well as this green screen that we've learned how to turn into a photo booth. So we used it at Christmas time in Palos this past Christmas,
Yeah.
and it went over really well. So we're going to do it again.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun. You'll get a picture,
Yeah,
sort of an instant photo to take home with you to
Yeah.
commemorate the occasion.
Yeah.
And yeah. Lots of fun.
So then also, because the Palos Heights Women's Club is actually the group that founded the library back in on February 28th, 1944, and the library is also having a special dinner for them as well.
Right. So we're inviting the ladies of the current the women of the Palos Heights Women's Club to join us. In March for dinner to celebrate, like you said, our founding patrons. So a lot happened before February 28th, 1944. In order to found the library, there was a call for public donations of books and furniture and shelves and whatnot, and that's really how the library got started. And it was really the work of the Palos Heights Women's Club at that time
Who took it over
that took on that project and brought the library to life in that that small setting.
Right. So one of the slides that you'll be seeing is on that slide is a picture of a young boy opening a door that says library above it, and that's actually the library. That's the building the library moved into in 1947. It's their first library.
Right.
So it was the library started in the house of somebody else before, but then it moved into this building, which was sharing a building with the fire department. But we were talking about the numbers then.
Yeah.
Back in 1947, circa 1947, the library had how many books, Jesse?
There were about 3,000 books in
Yeah.
that little. It's a small room. It's got I think a little potbelly stove
Yeah.
in it for some heat.
Yeah.
Just some shelves and a table, and about 3,000 books,
Yeah,
and some volunteer staff open a few hours a week.
Yeah, like 2 hours on a Wednesday night for whatever reason, and then
And
3
a
hours on a
Saturday.
Saturday. Something different like that. But it was also always, I was reading, had read a lot of accounts, and they were just saying it was always freezing in there. They had that little stove.
It looks cold.
Yeah.
especially in January.
Yeah. So what? But today. So today.
So today.
How have we grown over 75 years?
So I don't know how many square feet that library room might have been in 1947, but it was
Tiny.
It was a side room. It wasn't even. It's generous to say that it shared the building with the fire department at the time. Because if you see a picture of the whole building, you see the two big bays for the fire trucks, and another little side
closet,
section
yes.
with a door around the side. That's essentially a big closet that was the library. Now we have a 36,000 square foot building. We have over 62,000 books.
62,000.
62,000 books.
Okay. Those are just physical books.
That's physical books. E-books, we have another 10,000. We have 6,500 movies, 5,000 audiobooks. Again, physical collections. On top of all of the e-audio and online movies that they get access to.
Open as many hours as we are. How many
Right.
visitors did we?
So these days we get about 170,000 visits a year, which
Wow.
for a city the size of Palos Heights, about 12,000 people, that's a huge number. That mathematically, it means every man, woman, and child in the city of Palos Heights visits the library 15 times a year on average.
Wow.
Obviously, there are a lot of people who don't come into the library at all, and hopefully they'll come in on the 28th if nothing else.
Yeah.
But but we see so many visitors a year. It's so heavily used.
Well, and it's like, speaking of growing, it's like, books, yes, that's what libraries, were based on, but there's so many other things to do at the library.
Right.
We have our programs, the computer classes, the technology,
Right, and I think
story
this is what people who haven't been to the library recently don't necessarily get about what libraries are and what they do, especially in the 21st century. And a big part of what appealed to me when I was looking into librarianship, again, libraries are about the people. They're about communities. They're built by communities, and they're built to serve communities. Our library is built by the citizens of Palos Heights, for the citizens of Palos Heights. It's different from every library in the area, every other library in the area, because it's particular to this town, and you can see that in the specific vibe you get in our library. People like that it feels like you're in somebody's living room. It's a comfortable space. It's a warm, inviting space. That's what the people in this town wanted, and that's why the library turned out to be what it is. So aside from being this place that you can go that has lots of books, yes, we're still those things that libraries have always been. If you grew up going to story times, we've still got lots of story times and fun programs and whatnot. Same thing for adults. We've got a calendar full of just incredibly interesting, fun, enlightening events throughout the year. We've got computer classes. We've got free Wi-Fi all the time. You don't have to buy anything. You can sit for, literally you can sit for 12 hours a day and nobody will bother you.
Well, I don't know about that.
You don't have to buy any food or coffee to stay there.
Right, right, exactly. And study rooms, we have a lot of students coming in.
We've got study rooms, we get high school students,
a lot of college students coming in,
we've got meeting rooms, our conference room people use, our big meeting room. We have lots of local organizations that use it quite regularly. There's so many things, so many roles that the library plays in the community, and that's just sort of the physical building itself. One of the big pushes that we're in the middle of right now with our current strategic planning process is clearly the feedback that we're getting is that we need to be more thoughtful in the way that we're bringing library services outside of the building as well. And so we're approaching that on a number of different fronts, obviously through the website and through the web accessible materials that we have.
Like our downloadable,
right,
the ebooks that you can download from home. Even if we're closed.
Yep.
You
24 hours a day,
books.
7 days a week. Ebooks,
you never get off fines on those either.
If you're still listening to books on CD, come and talk to one of our librarians, because you need to see how checking out e-audiobooks works.
It's so easy. I love them, and
I do half my reading audibly.
So do I. At least half of my.
In the car while I'm making dinner. I make dinner every day, and it's one of my things. I put in the headphone and cook for the kids and cook for my wife, and it's a ritual.
Right.
So it's a great way to read, and it's so easy
to do that. Yeah. And then when you travel, if you're traveling in the car, you can you have your downloadable phones or books on your phones and all that. But also we have the databases. You can take classes online.
Right, and this is another piece that I wish people knew more about. Both of those things. One, the classes. If you've heard of lynda.com, which I know people can subscribe to lynda.com, Ancestry.
Oh, absolutely.
We have versions of those, subscriptions to those, that all of our patrons can
Palos Heights residents can come and use for free.
Can use for free.
Right.
In some cases, like with lynda.com, you can use it from home for free even. You all you need to do is go through our website to our lynda.com resource, create your account, and you're off. And the classes available there they're so high quality, and they're so varied in what's offered. It's really, I think, an amazing resource, and it's so underused right now. I'm probably one of the biggest users myself.
But you know what is nice about it is because when the weather is awful outside right now. We have ice storms. In the wintertime, or if you're not feeling well, whatever, you can get online with your library card, access these things for free, and take a class. You could be a class. You can learn a new language, foreign language. We can. You could take a class on flower arrangement, or you can learn Excel and get credited certificates for it. I mean, there's just so many. There's a whole wide range of
Right,
things.
right.
And so it's something to do when you're getting cabin fever. And
Yeah, and I think that the same is true of our database resources, like you mentioned, A to Z databases, and some of these others that I think people don't understand exactly what these are. It's Google on steroids.
Yeah.
You know, you log into A to Z databases, and the access to information that you have is as if someone did a Google search and cut out all the junk
ads,
for you.
yeah.
Cut out all the stuff that you weren't looking for, and you get the real hardcore information.
And it's all verifiable
Exactly.
information.
It's all vetted.
Yes.
So it takes the guesswork out of research in significant ways.
Wonderful.
And so both the depth, the clarity, the relevance of what you find on there is amazing. And if you haven't tried out, a database for doing research,
Give us a call.
You've missed out.
Or come and see us, and we'll show you how to get on
Exactly.
there. So come a long way in 75 years is basically what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
6 million or so visits, many hundreds of thousands of books checked out.
Yeah.
Now other
Lots
things
of activity still,
Mm-hmm.
and still going strong, and we have a lot of good things to look forward to.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Jesse, thanks so much for coming out to talking about the library's 75th anniversary in 2019, and for letting everybody know that, yep, we're all invited to the public reception that's going to be coming up. You're invited to the library every day, right?
Absolutely.
Whether we're open or not, because when we're not open, you can still access your stuff online.
Exactly.
That's the good part about it. Thanks for talking about us with this Fred Rogers book and for being with us. And thank all of you for being with us today. We'll see you next time.